Today is the 25th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Cycle B. The Book of Wisdom tells us that a good person will be obnoxious to evildoers. The good person, by the example of his life, will embarrass the evildoers whose ways are always sinful. Rather than be ashamed and change their behavior, they will ridicule and persecute the righteous person. Have this ever happened to you? Instead of receiving praise for your goodness, others became envious and criticized you. The chief priests, scribes, and Pharisees became so angry every time Jesus pointed out their flaws, especially their lack of mercy and compassion, that they plotted to kill Jesus and eventually succeeded. In these times as Christians, we have to bear the cross of ridicule for our good behavior, but continue to do good. We must also ask ourselves, how do we react to the success of others who do things correctly and honestly? Do we admire or resent them? Do we seek to bring them down, or do we try to raise them up and to also raise up ourselves? Today, Christians are being bullied. We uphold God's teaching on the sanctity of life because we see fertility and motherhood as a blessing and not a disease to be cured. We're told that we're declaring war on women because abortion is legal, and we are refusing to bear the cost of free contraception and abortion. You have the right to bear arms, but that does not mean that the government has to buy you a gun for free. Likewise, the legal right to an abortion does not mean the government should pay for it. There is something, however, very disturbing about Planned Parenthood, whose former name was the Eugenics Society, whose aim was to curtail the black population after emancipation. They provide discounted abortion services and have 70% of their clinics in what is considered black neighborhoods, which make up less than 12% of the population. Soap operas and telenovelas prevail marriage like a merry-go-round. Almost everyone was once married to another character in the show, and therefore promotes the notion that one should not strive for long-term marital relationships. Casual sex outside of marriage appear to be a regular part of TV movies and shows. Some even promote the idea that the male hero is entitled to many beautiful women. For example, James Bond always have to have a new girl. If our sons and daughters are not sexually active by 16 years old and are virgins, our society treats them as dysfunctional, having unhealthy interpersonal relationships. Movies about high school graduation and college life glorify the sinful behavior of drunkenness and premarital sex and ignore the spiritual and psychological problems that come later, such as breakups, abandonment, pregnancy, and infidelity. Today, very few teenage sexual relationships result in marriage. Reality shows portrays the worst of human nature: swearing, cheating, lying, greed, selfishness, while very few shows teach and promote the Christian values of honesty, chastity, responsibility, humility, honesty, compassion, and forgiveness. The F word was only heard on late-night comedy shows. Now it is acceptable on talk shows and award shows. St. James tells us, where jealousy and selfish ambition exists, there is disorder and every foul practice. Our human desires for power, prestige, and honor are difficult to overcome when our culture glorifies these things. But wisdom from above is first of all pure, then peaceable, gentle, compliant, full of mercy and good fruits, without inconstancy and insincerity. We need to pray for wisdom more than for power, prestige, and honor. Be guarded. Listen to what you're praying for. Is it about power, prestige, and honor? While Jesus is warning his disciples that he will have to suffer as the Messiah, his apostles were still thinking about the Messiah as a mighty and powerful king who would defeat the Romans and of their roles as the new nobility in that era. Jesus teaches his apostles and us that discipleship is not about power, glory, and fame. It is about service to others and even giving one's life for others. In Jesus' time, socially, a child had no status, no rights, and was totally dependent on adults for everything and had to be obedient. The child is the symbol of all who are powerless, disenfranchised, in need, or on the margins of society today. Rather than showing our power over the weak, Christ tells us to empower them, welcome them, embrace them, and tend to their needs. To ensure that this happens, we need to place Christ at the head of our ministries. We also need to make Christ the head of our homes. We have to live according to the truths of the gospel, regardless of the consequences: ridicule, insults, threats, or economic loss. Please stand up for what is right and just, what is true. Speak up loudly. Do not be afraid.